I'm going to lead off with a question from the pack, and then we'll turn it to the audience, and folks from the audience will be able to ask questions. But take a moment to think about the question we have lined up today, and then I'll ask for a show of hands of who would like to go first. What do you view to be the biggest challenge you'll face, if elected or re-elected, when you get back on the, or you get into council or get back on the council, and how will you address that challenge? Take a moment to think about it. And then whoever would like to go first, quick show of hands, and we'll make sure everybody gets an opportunity to say that. Chris? Yeah. Okay. And then Brenda. So let's go Chris first. If you can pass him the mic, and then we'll go to Brenda.
So the question was what I think will be the biggest challenge.
And how you will address it.
I think the biggest challenge that I'm likely to face if I were reelected is that the tribal council will be so partisan that people will oppose stuff just because I'm the one who's proposing it. I think some people, the idea of reforming the Constitution scares people. I think that there are people on council who are okay with having all the power that they do. They don't want to relinquish that. And so I'm worried that we'll experience gridlock, and there'll be an effort to undermine something that I think is a fundamentally good idea. I can't force people to vote the way I want them to, but one of the ways in which I would deal with it is to report on what's going on instead of just be silent about it. I think that was a mistake that I made previously on council. When I lost battles, I would just be quiet about them, but I think sometimes I should explain that I tried to do something and there was opposition, and this was their line of reasoning. That probably won't help in terms of the divisiveness, but I don't know how else to do it other than to just be open about the fact that I'm trying to pursue something I think is a good idea and people are opposing it because of petty politics.
Thanks, Chris. Brenda? Okay, then Corey.
Same thing Chris said. No. The division. And you know, I've talked about unity for years, and so I think if I get on tribal council and I walk in there, I've got to behave in a manner that is going to try to heal that. So to walk in and deal with tribal council who won't look at each other in public, or who roll their eyes, or who sigh, or whatever, that it's going to be a challenge to stay positive and to work through that. But instead of talking just about that, I think then, since the division is going to be my biggest challenge, how do we address that? By increasing membership involvement. So we have to address, why are our members not involved? And so I think that they don't have a sense of belonging. I think they don't want to be involved in the drama. I think there's this huge disconnect, and then I think the disconnect is different for different age groups. So we've got to reach out and try to figure out how to get the membership involved so we can heal the division. And some of the ways that I would like to do that is, I want to create we have programs for our elders and we have programs for our youth, but I don't see any programs for our youth and elder put together, so our elders can teach our youth, and you know, history and culture and language, and just start healing in that way. And then I would like to support our newly formed youth council, so we get our youth involved and in leadership skills. I would also like to utilize our tribal historian, our tribal anthropologist, and our tribal teachers. We have several teachers that will come together and create these mini little focus lessons that we can send out to tribal members. Just any way to draw them back in, give them a sense of belonging, and help to heal the division also.
Thanks, Brenda. Let's go to Corey. It's okay.
So the question was the biggest challenge, and the biggest challenge is, you know, just like both the each one on each side of me said, you know, that Chris and Brenda, with the getting along, you know, unit integrity as far as within the council and stuff, you know, and you know, I think the big thing is, you know, basically just checking yourself, and knowing where you're at, situation awareness of what's going on, not only in the tribe, but what's going on with the council, and in the emotion, and just being sensitive to what's going on at that time. I also feel that through this will unite a lot of us for the future, and we can handle a lot of these issues together that Brenda's talking about. They're great issues on the table, and if we can just tackle them one at a time as a unit, and life will be so much easier for everybody, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. It's not Ann or Kathy. One of you prefer to go next? Kathy?
The question is, what would I do? What would be the biggest challenge, and how would I address that? I think as a tribal council member, it is challenging every day, and Brenda's right. You do see tribal council rolling their eyes when somebody is trying to talk, or you're told to shut up. That's happened several times to certain council women, or told to be quiet, that you talk too much. And it goes back to the respect of others and your opinions. And when your opinions aren't respected, even though you're trying to relay this idea and have everybody's opinion be heard, sometimes it comes up with huge roadblocks. And that's nothing I'm really proud to say, but it does happen behind closed doors. I think another challenge that we have as working together is that there's always these meetings in other council's offices, and decisions are made prior to some of us even hearing about it. And once the ball's rolling, it rolls, and when you have a majority of council voting for something, and it's already predetermined, it's pretty frustrating for the rest of us. So for me, it goes back to ethics and how to strengthen that ethics ordinance in regards to and I know that a lot of county commissioners have ethics rules that if there's more than 3 of you meeting at once, then that's a meeting and you can't do those kind of things. So I think strengthening our ethics ordinance about these little secret meetings and predetermining of what's happening would be something that we should address. I think the tribal council, once you respect each other's opinions, you might not agree with them, but to be able to hear what they have to say, respect what they're saying, and have some kind of cooperative agreement, or some kind of a balance where it's not just all one way. Maybe we can do everybody's way, or get everybody's input in. So I guess for me, it's to stop some of these, they seem like they're colluding as opposed to working together, and I guess that's for me. Meetings should happen with all of us sitting in the room. It shouldn't be predetermined decisions, and that we work together. And my hope is if there's new council members on there, that will happen. I would really cherish working with a council that works collaboratively and support each other, and enjoy that they're coming to work and having fun and making the best decisions for all of our tribal members, because that's really what it's all about. It's about making our tribal members' lives a little bit easier, and it's hard when there's so much internal strife. I know that we work on it every day. There's tribal council members there that come in with a great attitude, and then they're shot down. So it's frustrating, and it's very stressful. But I guess that's how I would address it. I would strengthen our ethics ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Ann?
For me, what I see is it doesn't appear that the general council is recognized as the backbone of the tribe, and that's what we are. The general council, to me, is the most important reason, and it doesn't appear to me that the current tribal council, as the majority anyway, looks at it that way. I don't see that our membership is treated as respectfully as I would like to see them all treated. The first thing that I would like to see looked at and addressed is the Constitution. And I believe our Constitution as a whole is really, it's a good solid document, but it's a living document, and I think it needs to be addressed. It's been 30 years. And I said in my opening comment, I believe the 1999 amendment does need to be readdressed. It's been 15 years. And I think that the majority of the families in our tribe have been negatively affected by that 1999 amendment, and there's a lot of split families at this point. In addition to that, I think we need to look at giving the membership a voice at the table. I don't think that, we have an advisory vote. However, that advisory, I'm not sure, it seems it's rarely even acknowledged. People can come to tribal council and submit an email or walk into their office, but we never hear it. And it seems like everything that's brought to the table goes forward anyway, whether someone puts a argument against it or not. It's just they've made up their mind, and whatever we, the general council, feels isn't even acknowledged, and I don't think that's right. I think the general council needs to have a voice. But also, I think as a tribal council person, we need to show respect, and we need to respect all our membership, not just certain members. And so I would like to see and set an example, and that example being, just like Kathy said, treat each other with respect, and treat the membership with respect, because the membership is the most important.
Thank you, Ann. So we'll turn it to the audience now, and if folks want to ask a question, you're welcome to ask to a specific candidate. I may paraphrase it and open it up for others to address it as well. But now's the opportunity for folks to ask the candidates any question they'd like. Anybody have a question? Sure, go ahead.
Monty Pierce, roll number 2620. I don't follow up on what Kathy mentioned about how county commissioners handle decision-making, and ask you what you guys think of this. Commissioners are not allowed to meet unless it's in an open forum. They're not allowed to make decisions unless it's in an open forum with their constituents up there. All of our tribal decisions are made in private. No one, as far as tribal members, know who made the decisions, how they were made, who met with who separately or whatever. I think that that's one of our biggest problems. I would like to know what you guys' feelings are on that, and whether you think that that's something that could be changed.
Okay. So, Kathy, if it's all right, we'll start with you, since it was addressed to you, and then I'll ask others to address the same question. But it essentially is, are too many of our decisions being made without the transparency to the members, so we can understand how these decisions are being reached? What can be done about that?
That was a great question, Monty. And it goes back to what I was talking about ethics and decisions being made behind closed doors, and all of us aren't included. I think that can be strengthened in the ethics ordinance, but also we have it just seems like a practice of if some of the council don't want this out in the public, it goes into executive session. And I think that executive sessions are necessary in certain particular things when, they're about an employee or about something that's, really isn't something that the tribal membership needs to know. I think that executive sessions should be documented, and I think that they should be taped, and I think that they should go in archives, and that maybe in 10 or 20 years that they come out and that it's public information. But I do think that there's a lot of things that are done because people will call executive session, and it's just as far as I'm concerned, and I might get, but to me it feels like a cover-up, and that's me. So I think that executive session is necessary, but I also think that it's used way too much in certain particular instances. So I think that The ethics ordinance should be strengthened. It should be like the county commissioners, that you meet in public where people can participate, people can see what you're doing, and that there's nothing that looks sneaky or collusive or any of that kind of stuff. So I support that 100%.
Thanks, Cassie.
I hope I answered your question.
So Brenda would like to respond to this question as well. Go ahead, Brenda.
When I look at the things that are going on now, specifically the enrollment audit and the emergency amendments and the division in the tribe, no matter what it is, no matter what issue, I always step back and say, not what is going on, but why is this going on? What is our Constitution? What is our policies and our procedures? What is it that it is set up like that this can happen? Not what is happening, but why is it happening? How did we get here? What can we do to change it? So again, I'm going to go back to policies and procedures. You know, strengthening the ethics ordinance, that's perfect, that's great. But the waylay that happens, you know, if Kathy were to put it forward or something, the stalling and the things that people can get it off track and do whatever they want to do, so it doesn't happen. We've needed to strengthen that for years, but it just doesn't happen. So we've got to look at our policies, we've got to look at our procedures and how the tribal council puts things forward and in motion to make sure that a few people cannot waylay it or just ignore it or put it to rest completely. So again, policies and procedures, rewrite them.
Thanks, Brenda. Anybody else want to address the question? Chris?
I didn't know.
Corey?
Yes, I'll
No? Okay. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, this is admittedly a tough question to answer, and I'm going to sound a bit like someone who just finished the first year of law school when I answer it. The rules for, I don't think the rules for executive session are very clearly defined. There are instances when we actually make a motion, or I take that back, when I was on council, there are instances where we would make a motion and call for executive session. And though there are other instances when we had meetings like with our internal auditor or our lawyer, which were just automatically considered attorney-client privileged and confidential, the tribe is not really consistent in how they deal with that. I think maybe one answer to that is, this was discussed last week in Portland about how for emergency amendments maybe require a 7-person majority for it to be considered an emergency amendment. Maybe when the tribal council calls executive session, it has to be unanimous, or you have to have at least 7 people. If you don't have a change like that, then no matter what, 5 members of the council will be able to call any meeting in secret. So I think you just have to make a simple rule change there. But another problem is, who enforces that rule? What if council violates the rule for calling an executive session? Does somebody step in? And tell them they can't do that? Well, I mean, there's no really body that oversees them and has the authority to enforce that, unless someone wants to file ethics charges against council, and that can be a very laborious process. So I think a lot of it goes back to something that was discussed years ago about having like an independent ethics commission that would have the ability to enforce these kinds of rules. It was not a popular idea with council at that time, but I'm not really sure how else you do it, because a lot of it's going to require cooperation of council.
Could I clarify my question a little bit more? Because I'm not sure that it's totally getting answered. When you have a Wednesday night council meeting and you're making decisions, there is no discussion on the decision at all. The decision, there's a motion made and there's a vote. At the county commissioners meeting, there's a motion made and one of the county commissioners will say why they're for it or why they're against it. There is discussion, and it might take 3 or 4 meetings before they make a decision on that, because all the discussion is in the open. At our Wednesday night meetings, there's a motion made, there's no discussion, because the decision has already been made behind closed doors, so we don't get to know whether Chris Mercier was for it or against it, or how he talked about it or anything. So when it comes for us voting for you again or whatever, we have no idea what your position is on anything. There's no way for us to know even how the decision was made, because there's no discussion in an open forum. And there's no way to have input on it because we don't have any idea what's going on.
Okay. Well, I can respond to that. I think part of the problem is that the council has like 3 different layers of meetings. We have work sessions, which are done in council chambers or in the council conference room. We have legislative action committee, which is where a lot of the discussion for items that make it to resolution for Wednesday night meetings get discussed. But we don't get the turnout at legislative action committee that we get at our Wednesday night meetings. But I think that's kind of what you're referring to, Monty, correct? Yeah. So a lot of times there is discussion, but it takes place in a completely different meeting from Wednesday night meetings. And just to clarify, I know what you mean, and I know it'll take a lot of time. I know what you mean about the county commissioners, because there is one of the counties in Oregon has a rule where if two commissioners meet to discuss something, it is automatically a public meeting and should be open to the public. That's something the tribe could look at, but like I said, it would require, I'm not sure how the language would look like. It would be in an ordinance or in the Constitution, but it would require a lot of consent on council.
And who would enforce it, right? Would be the other point. Corey, go ahead.
I see your point in all this, and I guess, in my opinion, we would have to police ourselves in a lot of situations as a council, and we're going to have to stand up and stay strong to our convictions as far as our decisions and stuff, and not be afraid to let people know that, hey, I stood up and I voted yes on this. And I think some of the people that are on council right now are doing that. And they're standing up and they're saying, look, we're tired of this. We're tired of being treated this way. Not only that we're tired of things being buffaloed right through the system, right in front of our membership, and them not having all the information that they're needed, to make these decisions as far as voting on who to vote for, even with the election. There's a certain leadership trait of being able to police your own within the ranks, basically. And if we keep holding them accountable and keep throwing it out there that they're doing this and we're voting this way and it's obvious that they're voting this way, we got to make it obvious, transparent to the membership. And that's the only way that these people are going to stop doing the behind the scenes meetings and stuff. We got to hold them accountable. And if we don't have the ethics and the policies and procedure in place, we need to get that in place. But if those tools aren't working, we need to find a different way and just not quit and keep striving forward.
Thanks, Corey. And did you want to address the question?
Thank you, Monty. I think that's a very good question. And it goes with what I have been saying as well, is that the membership just doesn't know, and they're not respected, and they're not told. So, we've heard the word transparency. Well, it seems as of late, our transparency has actually gotten less instead of more. And I believe, our Wednesday night meetings, some of them, right now, some of them last a long time because we're right in the middle of this enrollment issue. However, some of them I've been to that were over in 10 minutes. And I think when things come to the table, our council should explain why they voted. Every once in a while I hear someone, it's usually Kathy or Denise, will say, this is why I voted no, or for whatever reason. And I appreciate that, but I think maybe putting something in place where they all explain what they're voting on, because sometimes I'm sitting there and I'll hear something read and they vote. And so I'll stand up, what does that mean? What are you voting on? We don't even know what they're voting on. They just read a quick sentence. I think there needs to be more clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. And Monty, I want to share as well just a quick experience we had with the PAC 5 years ago. When we first started, we actually wanted to start tracking votes on council so people could have a log to see how various members were voting. So we asked for 6 months' worth of the LAC voting sheets so that we could then tally that up and post so people could see how folks voted. Well, the public information ordinance says that it has to charge us $5 for each piece of paper. So for the 6 months of voting records we got, it cost us $200. So our own tribe won't give us the information so that we can turn around and post it for the membership unless we pay $5 for each record. And so we decided then we can't afford that as a nonprofit to pay that kind of money. And we've been pushing council for a long while. They used to have it on Laserfish, so everybody could go on there and access it. Well, that's gone now. So I think that transparency has gone backwards. We can't even tally how people have voted right now without paying a lot of money, and that's unfortunate. So another question. Open up for any question in the audience. Debbie?
Just as a follow-up to that, how do you get people who don't happen to live in Grand Run and can run over to the LAC meeting in the morning at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday to participate in that process, and then again have to drive back to Grand Run 5 o'clock Wednesday night for the final vote? I mean, it is so exclusive of anybody who does not happen to live in that little 20-mile area. It's ridiculous.
Correct.
And yet, they keep saying how transparent they are and how much they're working toward that. They don't broadcast them anymore. And how do you see getting around that problem?
Great question. Kevin?
Well, I think.
Let's get the microphone real quick. Kathy, sorry.
Like Brian said, our transparency is going backwards. We could live video stream that, and people could watch it live, and people should be able to call in and ask a question if they want. So there's all kinds of ways to do that. We just don't do that at this time. And so, one of the things that I wanted to do was transparency. I was, a tribal member who wanted to see what was happening and why decisions were being made that really weren't in the best interest or without any feedback from the membership. So there are ways to do that. We just have to do them, and it's so simple. It can be done. And sometimes it feels like we don't want everybody to know what's happening. I think that those work sessions that we have on Thursday before it comes to LAC and everybody votes yes or no, I think those work sessions should be right out front, in front of everybody, so that, just like Monty said, like the county commissioners do, their work session is in front of their members, or their constituents and the people that are in their counties or cities, and there's no reason why we can't do that. And I really think that that's a great idea, because I think that tribal council can reorganize how they do business, because there are days